My entire life wasn't one of complete and total um, suffering. When I was little, um, this, my biological parents, um, I can tell it wasn't the decision of my mother because um, I can remember the day I was taken away. My mother and I were, my little brother were sitting out on the porch, and right before we were taken away, she was giving us some candy and whatnot. Um, and she hugged me like she'd never let me go type thing. And I said, remember, I'll always love you. My only memory of her uh, was her being dragged into the house um, by, I suppose, my biological father, and her hysterical um, as she watched my brother and I being taken away by child services or whatever. Um, so at least I have a memory of and a good memory. Well, mixed feelings, of course, um, associated with some people don't um, know who their parents are at all. A lot of people, and of course that's the only memory I have. So I don't know them really myself, but I had some really good. I've heard nightmare stories about people in CPS abused, turned into foster homes that they were abused in, and severely sometimes maltreated. I happen to have been very fortunate in that I had highly respectable foster parents, at least um, right before I was adopted. I was in two foster families. The first one, yeah, uh, I can't say that I was totally abused, but my memories of them were so negative that even at 3 years old, I was climbing trees and to get away from them, and I learned how to vomit at will. Um, if they were maltreating me, just to get them away from me. But of course, that always resulted in more abuse. At any rate, my brother and I were separated in the process. My biological brother and I. 25 years later, we were miraculously reunited, and again, it was prayer. It was prayer. It was God. It was a miracle. So I got to see my biological brother as an adult 25 years after we were separated as little kids. Um, him still in diapers, still a toddler. I mean, just out of him. And anyway, um, my schooling years, some of the people I remember the most weren't like, necessarily just my teachers and principals and things. It was like um, there was a neighborhood later that lived in my country, uh, rural, agricultural rural neighborhood. We were in a small community that was part of farmland all around us, and back in those days, and there was a small grove of cherry trees at the end of the street. Wild asparagus grew in the culverts um, out in the country, um, only a few miles out of town, really. I used to run to school along the railroad tracks because that was the easiest and straightest route from the country to the school in town. And so I remember one of our neighbors, um, Chubette, um, she obviously loved feeding all of us munchkins. Um, I want to make school for all children where you're not separated between those that have money and those that don't. Um, um, Public school, where you start out with breakfast and stretching and exercise everyone. In other words, physical education right now is incorporated at different hours of the day where it's not ideal for metabolism and for proper growth. I mean, development for young people and adults alike. In other words, the best way to start your day is to, when you first wake up, hydrate. In other words, when you first wake up, typically people need, because they've been sleeping and their body's been processing digestion fluids and detoxifying and everything. So typically people, when they first wake up, need to use the restroom. But right after that, you should hydrate with, purified, as clean water as possible for your body weight. I forget the ideal amount of ounces per pound of person, but there's an ideal amount of hydration, and typically it's just you're going to be thirsty, and typically just drink water. The very first thing you should drink and put in your mouth when you wake up is good quality water, or maybe just a little bit of like whatever your favorite fruit juices are, or vegetable juices in the water. And any for every 8 ounces, less than an ounce of your favorite fruit juice, or just to flavor the water a little bit. You mostly need water, hydration, when we first wake up, and everybody, and before you eat or drink anything else. After you hydrate, you should stretch, and you should, if at all possible, if you have the energy, exercise for anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes, depending on your level of energy. Now, little kids should be that full half hour, at least. Young people, as much as an hour. In other words, from your early teens all the way up into your mid-20s, some vigorous exercise first thing in the morning if you want to be in optimal health for as long as possible. And that's after you hydrate, but before you eat breakfast. And then immediately following, then you eat breakfast, and then you go to your classes. And I want to make education based on the very best knowledge that we have accumulated to date of mankind about human development and overall health and wellness, and just incorporate that to the point where after you graduate, after you get your technical skills or higher learning or whatever it is, and you go into the workplace, that the workplace still passes on, starting out with stretching for all ages in at least a half hour every morning of some type of whether it's just stretching the whole half hour or incorporating some cardio workout, some aerobics, getting oxygen through your body and into your brain before you start doing anything. Just to start your day, to give your body what it needs to live, and to live as healthy as possible. And breakfast, in other words, that's part of work. That's part of your daily regimen. Now, people say, well, you do that before work. And I'm saying, no, I want to make that part of the 40-hour work week, where people go to work with people, not for people, and with them, you all look out for one another's health and wellness, just as a standard of practice lifelong. And so this Chevette would feed us lunches, and back in those days, if there never was any leftovers. But if there was, after everybody had gotten their hot lunch, if there was anything left over, vegetables or whatever, and you were still hungry as a little kid, you could ask for another portion. Um, um, Especially young males, typically, one round just wasn't enough. Now, an awful lot of people won't eat everything on their plate, so me, I like virtually everything. I've always liked vegetables. I'm not opposed to vegetables. I pretty much like them all. Fruit, pretty much everything. In other words, I had a seafood diet. I saw food and I ate it because I was a truly hungry youngster. And plus, I grew up, like I said, in farming country, so we had our own little garden and stuff. And I loved growing fruit and vegetables. One of my favorite things to do. Growing your own harvesting and then sharing with others your harvest was just part of country living. And so, like I said, I didn't. If you listen to some of my testimonies, it wasn't always, horrible. I had good days. I had a very blessed early childhood. My testimony gets hard when I entered this world without the shelter of even my adopted guardians and just on my own type thing. That's when reality hits you really hard. When there's not an elder looking out for you, and an awful lot of children don't have that, and making it damn near impossible to adopt is so cruel, so cruel. It's destroying lives. It's wrong. Anybody that's willing, and that's loving and good, that has a history of raising children, or maybe not, but maybe they came from a family where they were raised properly, and you can tell. And again, it should be ongoing supervision to make sure it's all done right. But my point being is, good nutrition is the very foundation of proper physical development. So I want schools, instead of just offering lunches, I want them to be giving all children, in public education, breakfasts and lunches, and then on their way home, some type of snack, preferably from local orchards, whether it's urban, suburban, or rural, wherever their closest local orchards come from. And I want children in primary and secondary education to visit these places so they know where their food's coming from, and I want the quality to be a whole hell of a lot better than it is today, of what these little kids are being given for nutrition, for their development. If you do not get proper nutrition during your development years, it not only stunts physical growth, but it does brain damage. It does organ damage. In other words, they don't develop optimally and to what each child is fully capable of becoming if you do not give them all as high nutrition as you possibly can give them. And currently, the crap, and even back in my day, now granted, it was better than nothing, and our favorite lunches were like, well, mine, personally, I actually like runs a day. He takes ground hamburger and seasonings, mostly garlic, salt, pepper, but you can add different other seasonings, and onions and cabbage mostly, and you stuff it into raw dough. And again, it's all cooked. And then the raw dough is then baked with the stuffing of the hamburger and the spices and the cabbage and onions and whatnot right into the sandwich. So it comes out completely sealed in it. And in her case, she would baste each bun with butter and everything. So they would, each ones would come out a buttery, fresh yeast, individual dough that was, I mean, like I said, baked that day. And then her runs of mix was totally delicious. So at least for me, some of the kids didn't like them. I'd be like, pass it over here. I pretty much could polish off what anybody was throwing out instead of as a youngster, man. I had an appetite. But at any rate, Pizza Day, of course, was popular. Okay, there was never any seconds on Pizza Day. All the Mexicans were chowing down on pizza. So I'm not saying you never do away with what just puts a little smile on Munchkin's faces. In other words, yeah, every once in a while you give them something from morale. It might not be the healthiest thing in the world for them, but a little sugary something, kids go nuts over, right? Dessert, right? You don't make it like always, the sweetest or the most sugary type of confectionery for them, but intersperse it in with the knowledge that they need in order to grow and become strong and healthy, a well balanced and not necessarily the pyramid crap that they have. Well balanced means that you incorporate in every meal proteins, vegetables, fruits, as much diversity in your diet, as much mixed colors, as much healthy organics, non-genetically modified, and preferably not crops that have been, drenched with pesticides and herbicides. And bring back small farm, local farms, or make the large farms something that's kind of like what it used to be between the lords and ladies and the serfs, where they each got a little plot of that huge, large agricultural area, and they each, as families, grew individual crops, and they all traded and everything like that. And it kept diversity. It kept biodiversity that way. And bring all that back. And I'm not saying bring back slavery and serfdom. I'm saying bring back biodiverse. Where people understand that carrots are not just orange roots, that there's purple ones, white ones, green ones, yellow ones, and the same thing with virtually all vegetables. That there's so much more out there than what people are exposed to in our markets these days. For instance, one of my favorite cherries, I mentioned it in another video, is called Montessori cherries, and that leads me to what I wanted this video to be about, which is when I was a child in primary education, I was interested in being able to communicate not just with English-speaking people, but people all over the world. So I took some cursory languages, not a bunch, a little bit of French, a little bit of German, a little bit of Spanish. For the most part, that was all that was being offered. If there was other languages that would have been offered, I probably would have taken a little bit of them. If Chinese or Japanese or Russian or any of those other languages had been offered in my educational setting, I would have at least taken a little bit of all of them, just so I could understand the very fundamentals of their alphabet and numeric systems and certain key phrases and things like this. Over the years, I tried to expose myself a little bit to all the major languages on Earth. And in that study, I came across the fact that now we have actually electronic translators similar to Star Trek. So I stopped applying my precious time in that endeavor. But at any rate, we had first generation German immigrant teaching our Deutsch in school, and he brought over from Germany a recipe that I've treasured for the rest of my life, and I'm thankful that he brought it over. A Schwarzwälder Kirschtorte. The Schwarzwälder Kirschtorte is Black Forest cherry cake, and it's made different all over the world, but this was a recipe that actually came straight from Germany by a first generation German immigrant. And when he handed it to us, it was a very fine print, full page, very detailed. And it was a whole process of organic ingredients for the chocolate cake itself. And then after the chocolate cake is pulled out of the oven, you actually soak it overnight in the refrigerator, chilled in kirsch. Kirsch is a cherry liqueur. Here in America, you can substitute cherry brandy, or if you don't want to use an alcoholic, you can substitute some grenadine with actual natural cherry juices if you want to get a whole bunch of cherry flavor in that. And me, I actually prefer, but if you ever find in the market, Montessori cherries. They're a very dark purple cherry, smaller than a ding, bigger than most pie cherries, and very sweet. Totally delicious. I can't believe that Montessori cherries are not available in markets worldwide because they're so scrumptious, at least to my palate. And anyway, bottom line is what I'm getting at is there are so many varieties of cherries that you don't even know, you've never even heard of, because we're letting our food and food distribution be controlled by a very few persons, rather than a whole bunch of people all participating in like a giant farmer's market. In other words, when trade is consolidated by only the wealthiest people on earth, and they take over huge amounts of acreage and fund genetically modified corporate monocultures, then your nutrition automatically plummets. You grow up in a world where you didn't even know such food even existed. You never even seen the things that really exist because of them. And I'm saying we have got to change the paradigm overall from just the wealthy participating in global trade to everybody. Everybody gets to participate. And the only way we can do that is by starting in your local towns, in your local cities, and changing that paradigm, where it's not just about the wealthy controlling all the distribution of food and what's grown and everything like that, but where everybody has a say. And so schools start interacting with their local urban farmers. And again, that should be a group and variety of people that love to farm, instead of just one source and just one crop. And that is stupid. That is a way to create runaway extinction events on planet Earth. And in fact, if you study what GMOs and that type of corporate monocultures are doing to planet Earth, it's just that. They're causing extinction events. And my notes on crimes against humanity expose that that's exactly what's going on. It's pure self-destructive stupidity to let only the wealthiest people in the world control everything. First of all, they can't control everything, no matter how much they want to. But secondly, by letting them consolidate wealth, it is destroying life intrinsically on earth. Their greed, the love of money, the root of all evil, just like God tells us, is destroying life. Anyway, so this is a special day for me. Normally, I don't have enough money to buy, cherries anymore. When I do, I typically have to sacrifice, in other words, I sacrifice meals. I'll end up, most days eating a potato or 2 a day, and then in order to have some cherries, just once a month maybe or something. And I know that's more than many people have. So it's not that I'm ungrateful. It's just that it is killing me. And in other words, at this point, poverty is killing me. And people say, well, get a job. And I'm like, imagine being terminally ill. Imagine being so damn sick that you have to pray just to get out of bed. And that's been my life every single day since what they did to me. I was given 3 units of incompatible blood. It provably did damage to my bone marrow. It did major damage to my immune system, such that my own immune system has been attacking my body, such that at least one laboratory test later afterwards showed that I had 50% abnormal leukocytes. Your leukocytes are responsible for your overall biological health. And that's the buzzer for the chocolate cake on this Black Forest cherry cake. Now, I've modified the recipe that from way back when, now decades ago, that I was given by that first generation German immigrant. We'll call him Herr Herbert. Well, Herr Herbert conscientiously did his best to teach us German. Again, that's decades ago, so it's not that I'm fluent in German. I can read it a little bit. I can speak a little bit. If I was over there and had to survive, of course, pick it up rather easily because I had that basic foundation even decades ago. But at any rate, Colonel Herbert gave us this recipe, and what you do is you bake your favorite chocolate cake. I recommend adding just a little bit of well, actually, I'll let you know how I doctor it. I doctor my chocolate cake, especially for this recipe, with 1 tablespoon of ground macadamia nut coffee. I like the coffee bean that grows in Hawaii. I've tried all kinds of beans from all over the world. I wouldn't say extensively. In other words, that would be something I would love to do sometime, is just sample roasts of coffee beans from the entire planet. But so far, my favorite coffee bean comes from Hawaii, and it's got a nuttiness to it that my palate particularly enjoys. I'm more into the mellow blends like Sumatra blends, Sumatra roasts, not so much of the bitter roasts. Straight espresso roast or even French roast, a little bit too bitter for my liking. The Kuna Gold brand Hawaiian beans, Hawaiian coffee beans. The flavor of a Hawaiian coffee bean, in my opinion, is superior to all the varieties especially the major brands that I've tried. And anyway, so I use, in this particular recipe for Black Forest cherry cake, I add to each 8-inch round portion 1 tablespoon of macadamia nut coffee. I like using Godiva powdered baking cocoa. If I'm making things from scratch, I make it intentionally a little bit on the dry side, because the cake, the chocolate cake itself, is substantially moistened by either soaking it in kirsch or cherry brandy, or you can take grenadine, and if you still want a little bit of alcohol content, some sweet rum, not necessarily spiced rum, but sweet rum. You take the grenadine and whatever cherries you're going to use. I just grabbed some sweet cherries from the store, and I macerate them in grenadine and in rum or cherry brandy, and a little bit of powdered sugar, little bit of cinnamon, not much. Like for each pound of cherries, maybe only a half teaspoon of cinnamon, just a little bit. And I also put a little bit of cinnamon in the chocolate cake batter itself. In other words, pretty much undetectable. But the presence of cinnamon helps with leveling blood sugars, and so I incorporated in an awful lot of things where it's not even necessarily a detectable spice flavor, but enough that your body can detect, assimilate it, and it actually helps level in your sweet blood sugars. And so after the cake is baked and cooled, and then you can do this two different ways. I stopped soaking it overnight because it becomes so hard to handle after it's super moist. You have to have a special cake spatula or some type of large cardboard if you don't have a cake spatula that you slide underneath the whole piece. And even in that process, when you're flipping it onto your either decorating icing turntable or onto the serving dish itself, it can fall apart, crumble, otherwise be too heavy. So what I've taken up doing as I make my own black forest cherry cakes now is I take each layer, put it on either the your icing turntable or even your serving dish itself, and then I baste it with the juices from the macerated cherries and the cherry brandy or the grenadine, depending on if you're going to make it alcoholic or non-alcoholic or whatever. Take the macerated juices of the cherries, baste each piece sufficiently so that the entire round on each layer has been moistened with the actual cherry juices in the chocolate cake. And then I take the macerated cherries and add them to homemade vanilla whipped cream with some of the cherry juice as well for flavoring. So, and that's the filling. And so the cherries are chopped up, and you still leave large chunks of cherries in the whipped filling between each of the layers. And you can do it different ways. You can take each round and you can slice them even thinner and make like 12 layers in a 3-layer cake, or 9 layers or so in a 3-layer, 3 8-inch rounds, 3 9-inch rounds. You can slice them into 3 very thin layers if you want. It just depends on how much you really like that filling as opposed to cake, and you want to balance the flavors. And so I usually just make 3 rather thin 9-inch rounds and bake them, and then I don't slice those just because they get so thin that pretty soon you're not tasting much of the chocolate. It's more like cream and crumbles at that point almost in your cake. So I actually like being able to slice through cake that's been soaked in the juices itself, super moist at that point. And then, again, the filling is just whipped cream and the macerated cherries with cherry juices. And then, on the outside, I modified it. Instead of just plain vanilla whipped cream, I actually like adding a little almond extract and making it an almond whipped icing around the outside of the cake. And then I decorate it. Hopefully when it's all done, I'll be able to show you. Again, I just pulled the chocolate cake out. So it's going to take me a while before, probably, tomorrow before the whole thing's all done now. Almond whipping topping, and then drizzling chocolate like branches. And I used to use actual real leaves off plants. I haven't had any green plants in my living space for years now. Not that I don't like green plants, it's just another thing that's difficult when you're extremely poor to have such things and to maintain such things, and when you're really, really, really ill. At any rate, so what I did was get like leaf molds, and then you melt the chocolate. You can either do it in a double boiler or in your microwave, just to your preference, really. And then you take the drizzled chocolate and the leaves, and you decorate, and then you save some of the macerated cherries, for on top and around the cake. And me, because again, I like to alter the recipe just a little bit by using the just a little bit of almond extract in the whipped topping. I'll add some smoked and roasted, salted almonds as well in the decoration process. And so the cake itself has some cherries and some almonds, some crunch, and super moist, really rich chocolate, and then a bunch of whipped cream. The whipped cream is not so sweet because everything else is, so it's more of a contrast, a nice creamy contrast to all of the other flavors. At any rate, I'm not a pastry chef. I haven't concentrated my whole life in desserts or baking or anything like that. It's just that if I do something like that, it's a very rare thing, and so that's why I'm making a video about it, just so people, because I go all over this world, at least when I had the means, across the United States, I should say. I haven't gone overseas. I do a lot of virtual touring. In other words, I'm totally into 3D virtual touring, experiencing places virtually as much as, of course, it's not the real thing, but at least I can visually see what places all over the world are like, resorts and things like that, stuff like doing a lot of virtual 3D touring of this world, and investigating recipes from all over the planet, things like that. And so one of the things that I've done is discovered that people just are not even aware. They just don't know enough to know better. And so they're making all kinds of mistakes and making life harder on themselves than it needs to be. And it's just a lack of knowledge. It's exactly what the scriptures say. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. It's not just your own individual lack of knowledge. It's pervasive lack of knowledge. And the most important knowledge that people are lacking is the knowledge of how to know and learn from our eternal Creator. That's the most important knowledge everybody needs. In other words, the Holy Bible should be part of primary education, secondary education, and all the way up through graduate and postgraduate education, higher learning. You cannot exhaust the knowledge that is contained in the Holy Bible. There are so many aspects of knowledge in the Holy Bible that even if you pick just even one of those topics, you could study it for your entire life and still not master everything there is to know about that topic in the Holy Bible. Now, compared to other people, might you acquire more knowledge than other people? Might other people consider you to be an expert? Maybe. But none of us are really an expert or a master in this life. Incarnation is just too brief. We are nothing more, all of us, than students. Now, as students, we share knowledge if we're wise, because we want other people to share their knowledge with us, right? I mean, we're all the better for it. In other words, putting power and too much control in the hands of too few people automatically engenders a monumental amount of ignorance. So do not let them do what they're trying to do, which is take control of the internet and alternative media. Don't let any group of people take control of the free exchange of knowledge and information between all of us. And they're starting to make it too damn expensive, too, to connect. It is important, very important for humanity at all levels to communicate and to share. Don't ever think of yourself as not a learned and knowledgeable person. From the time you're born, you're learning all kinds of things, and your testimony, your life story, for better or for worse, is very important. So share and unite to do your best to improve quality of life for everyone. Like I said, this video is supposed to be about Black Forest cherry cake, but I can't help but pour out my heart and soul. At least try to. I mean, what would you do, right? If you're terminally ill and dying, and none of your dreams will realize, things like that. You try to share a little bit if you're decent, right? Anyway, it's not that there's no hope for me. It's that when you become sick in America, you actually need more resources, more help, better nutrition immediately. But what happens is you're relegated to crushing poverty. That even if you're healthy, it kills you. So if you become chronically ill in America, they are in fact euthanizing the sick. I'm letting you know firsthand. $1,000 is not enough for me to buy the things I need medically and nutritionally in order to give me a chance to get back on my feet. And yes, I have been trying my hardest, but it's not enough. It just isn't. I gave up my freedom just because nutrition is more important. And then people are raising rents to the point where even though I can't afford good nutrition, even after giving up my own vehicle, they're making it even harder for me to recover. They're killing me. Greed is especially killing me, on top of all the evil I've already met in this world. Anyway, so today is a special day. I had enough to get some cherries, and I'm making a Black Forest cherry cake, just to kind of, I don't know, bring back, memories of somewhat better days, I suppose. Right. Whipping the whipped cream into 6 feet. especially for the exterior, thicker the better. Okay. Macerate, all that means is taking your pitted cherries, I pitted these by hand, and soaking them in the cherry juice, cherry brandy, Kirsch liqueur, in my case, brandy, a little bit of powdered sugar, and some sweet rum. Some people like alcohol in their creation. Some people don't. It's just whatever you personally prefer. Schwarzwälder Kirschtorte typically is made with an alcoholic Kirsch, in other words, cherry liqueur. And so that's the way I learned to make it, and so that's the way I, kind of like it, personally. But to each your own. You can use maraschino cherries if you want, bean cherries, any sweet cherry will do. If I had access, I would be using Montessori cherries. I just don't have any access to it now. So I'm using just some sweet cherries that I bought in the store. Once the whipped cream is in stiff heat, which is just about there, I know because of time, then I'm just going to be folding in the macerated cherries with a little bit of cherry juice for the filling. And then we'll come back and I'll start building the cake. Alright, again, it's been years since I made a proper Black Forest cherry cake, so I'm out of practice. In other words, ever since the attacks on my life, I'm mostly too ill to do creative things anymore. And B, what I've been relegated to try to survive on is so minimal that I just can't afford proper ingredients and to do things like this. So this is a special day. I'm just trying to pass on something that, I came across in my lifetime that I don't see a lot of out in my travels, and at least in America. And I'd like to see more of because it's a really delicious dessert. European pastry chefs can go to school as long as doctors do here in America. In other words, when you see some of those culinary chefs on TV, realize that they may not get paid as high as a skilled surgeon, but some of them have equal years of education, just trying to tantalize your taste buds. So, bottom line is, again, caste society is very strange to me about how we value people. For instance, I could play sports when I was a kid, rather proficiently. Bottom line is that I didn't choose that as a career, though. But professional sports players can make millions, eh? While educators are relegated to, far less income, even though they touch every one of our lives while we're going through public indoctrination. And it's why I'd like to see public education step up a huge notch from what it is today and what it was in my lifetime. For example, in an education setting that I envisioned, I would have graduated from college with a bachelor's, by the time I was a young teenager at most. I was doing college level math on the side. Most of the time in school, I twiddled my thumbs, daydreamed and stuff, because it was so redundant from year after year. In other words, I'm not saying I'm some kind of super genius or anything like that. I'm just saying that as a kid, I had an eidetic memory. So any type of repetition for me was extremely boring. And most of primary and secondary education is nothing but redundancy. And then trying to brainwash you with, whatever they call, science or whatever their agenda of the day is. Nowadays, it's perverting little kids, teaching them sex ed even in first grade and second grade and stuff, primary education about all kinds of perversions and stuff, to me that's a wrong priority. I'm sorry. Perverting little kids is a very wrong priority and a very evil priority. It shouldn't be part of public indoctrination at all. Making sure that they have exposure, hands-on, tactile learning, auditory learning, visual learning, in everything that's part of civilization, culture, fine arts, international learning, budgetary learning, life skills, all kinds of things that are just, minimized for just pure bullshit, like telling them they came from, an ape-like creature billions of years ago. I'm so angry about that particular crap of the theory of evolution, is that it makes me want to smack them silly. Frankly, I think personally it's a crime against humanity to lie to children in the name of science. And the higher learning to charge them for that brainwashing, to take their malleable minds and fill it full of bullshit, driving them away from the one true God and true sound knowledge and real science. I think that's a crime against humanity. In other words, don't ever let Antichrist take over public indoctrination again. If at all possible, saints, don't ever do that. Rockefeller and the Board of Education, look it up. When the Rothschilds and Rockefellers, and these are proven Antichrists and very evil, wicked people, folks. You don't let them take control of public indoctrination. You don't let them take control of anything, let alone your national economy. And now we've gotten to the point where they are persecuting. Our nation was founded on biblical precepts, folks. And so our educators should be holding up the Holy Bible as just like our predecessors, our forefathers, and saying, hey, this is the foundation of proper civilization. This is the foundation of law and order. The Holy Bible, the God of the Holy Bible, without absolutes, without divine law, without divine morals, you have none. And everything becomes subjective and then therefore chaotic, because it then becomes might makes right. Who's ever in power can dictate what the law of the day is and what science is, and just like they've done. So to be firing biblicists and creationists, to be saying that they can't express a scientific opinion, what's going on today, a conspiracy against them, persecution in America, founded upon biblical precepts, the very foundation of our civilization. The founding fathers, at least, the ones that signed their names on our founding documents, said things like, if you're an enemy of the Holy Bible, if you're an enemy of the God of the Holy Bible, then you're an enemy of America. And they didn't want people to be forced into how to interpret the Bible and to how to worship the one true God. But there's no doubt the vast majority of them, in considering freedom of religion and freedom of expression, were biblicists, monotheists, the God of the Holy Bible. They just didn't want something like Roman Catholicism or some denomination to dictate to them how to interpret the scriptures and how to worship them. So they created it as freedom of religion. But don't think in any way, shape, or form, folks, that the founders of America were not biblicists, were not Christians. Washington was known for praying so much, man, that he had holes in his knees and stuff. Hands. Part of history records him praying out loud, to the point where enemies that heard him pray considered, it a lost cause when they were led by somebody so fervent towards God as George Washington. So the bottom line is don't let people deceive you. The God of the Holy Bible is the one true God, the God of all creation. And if you don't know him today, it's because you have been listening to liars and deceivers your whole life that didn't tell you the truth, that A, you can know him, and B, how to know him. And that's to turn from all wicked thoughts, words, ways, and deeds, and to be baptized in the name of in English, our Lord Jesus Christ, praying to receive his Holy Spirit. His Spirit is who he is without substance. And when his Spirit comes upon you, unites with your being, who he made you to be, and then you will communicate with the one true God. He will teach you, he will mentor you, he will empower you, and reveal to you your specific divine purpose so that you can fulfill it before the end of your journey of incarnation. There's nothing more important, folks. And people not knowing him is actually destroying life on earth and one another. You're lost in a realm of ignorance, wickedness, lies, deceptions, delusions, of all kinds this day, mankind. I'm not saying everybody, but far too many. And it's a real danger to life on earth, provably. In other words, you not knowing God, all of you, not knowing him and not learning from him is actually endangering your lives and life on planet Earth, provably. And my notes explode it. Anyway, back to a creative day. I'm sick. I'm not feeling very well or energetic. That's why I'm not standing up. But I still have enough energy to build this cake. You take your favorite chocolate cake recipe, and I told you what I do to it. I add not only cocoa and high quality cocoa, but I add different types of coffee. I prefer coffee being grown from Hawaii, macadamia nut personally. You can get your coffee from wherever you want, but that's what I prefer. Based on, the different coffee beans I've tasted to date. I haven't tasted them from all over the world in every continent, but I've tasted quite a bit. When I was working and had money, I like to sample things. I like to try new things. I'm constantly learning. That's just part of my way I'm divinely designed. Voracious for knowledge of all kinds in all areas. Anyway, so you take the macerated juices. Again, you can use cherry brandy, or you can use grenadine without any alcohol at all, or you can just use the natural juices from the cherry. I like to sweeten it up myself. The natural juices with a little bit of grenadine and with cherry brandy, or if I don't have any, I'll throw in some rum and powdered sugar. To make more of a syrup of the juices, and let the cherries macerate in that at least a day, sometimes 2 or 3 days. In that kind of composition, especially if you've got cherry brandy or rum in it, you can let them macerate a whole month if you want. It's not going to hurt them. But bottom line is that they macerate. In other words, they soak in those juices, and then I take those juices, and each layer you can actually pour. The cake is like a sponge, so you can pour. The original recipe calls for soaking it overnight to absorb. To me, that makes the cake too moist. I like it moist, but not mushy. So I'll take this and just baste the heck out of it until I see that it's not really absorbing anymore, and maybe even pulling a little bit underneath. In other words, I like the chocolate to have plenty of this syrup in the cake itself. Get it nice and moist. And again, I like it where it's nice and moist without being mushy. The original recipe, soaking it overnight, in my opinion, makes it too mushy. All right. So after you pasted the cake, the first layer in whatever your particular cherry syrup is, um, then you're going to use your filling. And for me, it's the macerated cherries pulsed a couple times in a heavy cream. Sometimes if they're extra juicy, your filling will be a little runny. No big deal. It's going to soak into the cake, and that's the whole idea, anyways. Melding all those flavors. If you want it the filling to be extra thick and creamy, just don't add too much of the syrup when you fold in the cherries. Just fold the cherries in, and you'll have a nice, real thick filling. I personally like to add some of the cherry juice as well into the heavy cream, the heavy whipped cream. And so sometimes my filling will be, I don't know, a little bit on the runny side, or somebody might. Some people might not like it. I don't mind it. All right, so you just take some of your whipped topping. Again, fold your macerated cherries into it, and some of the cherry juice itself, and just layer it in between your various layers. Some people like, I could make these layers thin. In other words, I could slice them down to a really thin level and just have nine chocolate layers and so on and so forth. But I actually like to have quite a bit of cake in each bite, so I'm not doing that. In other words, every time I slice them thinner than just what it is before your eyes, it gets to be too thin for my liking. So something like everybody is free to choose how much filling they want. It's not like it has to be, so thick or anything. I'm making it kind of thin because my server doesn't have a really high top, and I like to be able to fit it into my glass server just for presentation and preservation. It creates a pretty good seal. All right, so then layer number two, repeat. Just baste it. Again, I'll pour some of it right into the cake. Baste all the way around though. Make sure you get plenty of juice in each layer. You can always save any of the, especially if it's got some good alcohol in it. You can always save the syrup for other dishes, wine sundaes or whatever. In other words, you don't have to waste any of the cherry juice after you're done if you've got more than enough to baste your cake with some left over. I really try to baste the edges because when your cake bakes, it dries more at the edges than it does in the center. So I'll baste the edges just to make sure the edges are extra moist. Since the center of it typically is moist just all on its own. And again, you fill it with the macerated cherries and heavy whipped cream filling. You can add whatever cherry juices you want. Some people like to mix them. Some people like to mix the liqueurs. I like taking whatever I've macerated the cherries in and putting it right into the filling, and just for consistent flavor. I'm not. There's enough contrast and complements, with what's there. I'm not to have to add any more complexities. You can if you want. Every teach their own. For instance, I do add a twist to the traditional Black Forest cherry cake, in that when I put on the exterior, instead of just vanilla whipped cream, is an almond whipped cream, and I throw some almonds in for texture in addition to the boy, this is gonna be too tall to put in my cake preserver. Probably actually gonna make it a whole other layer. Since I can, I'll just cut off the top here and build a whole other layer just to make it tall. I can't fit it in the cake server real well. I just want to use up most of that filling as opposed to putting it into something else. Alright, so cake's coming along. Again, it's just chocolate cake and macerated cherries and whipped cream, basically, but your macerated syrup is to taste. So in other words, it's to your own preference. A good kirsch liqueur is a heavy, thick syrup. In other words, even more so than cherry brandy. And so if you use cherry brandy, or if you use what you can do is low temperature evaporate and make the syrup extra thick and concentrate the sweetness of the cherry juices that way, if you want, and then chill it before you add it to your whipped cream. But for me, it's plenty sweet, and with the chocolate layers of cake and whatnot and the different fillings. So then all that's necessary after that is top it and decorate it. Even the topping I bake, even the top layer of chocolate cake I bake, get those cherry juices down into the cake. And again, if you soak the layers overnight, they're gonna be drenched basically. That's the original recipe. I found it, like I said, a little bit too mushy for my liking, so I just based it, and I just, at least for me, that's plenty of cherry flavor into the cake. I save some of the pitted macerated cherries for decorating, and so you'll see that. even on the top layer, um, it's mostly just plain almond with topping, but you'll still decorate it. I like to use, if you can, you take real leaves and you add just a little bit of oil into, like, say, 4 ounces of either dark chocolate or semi-sweet chocolate. Again, it's all to your taste. I put a little bit of cinnamon in, and for me, and melt it, and then you dip each leaf, and then you chill it, and then you peel the leaves off, and you get real leaves that way. Again, I haven't been healthy, so I didn't get out and do that. And so all I did was just melt some chocolate and just cut leaves, and I'm just going to basically freelance or just freehand the design that way. Just cut melted chocolate, leaves, branches, things like that. And you'll see when we come back after I get this all covered. All right, so this peak, and traditional, it's just vanilla whipped cream exterior. And then you'll take either dark chocolate or semi-sweet chocolate, melt it, and drizzle it for the branches, and then you can use form molds, like silicone form molds for chocolate leaves, or you can use real leaves and peel the chocolate, add a little bit of oil just to make it a little bit pliable to the melted chocolate to make your leaves. Or, like in my case, you can just pour out a sheet of chocolate and just cut your own shapes and designs. You don't have to have, after all that cream filling, you don't have to have a huge amount on the exterior. And you're in. After I finish covering it, we'll come back and I'll show you some of the decoration methods. Okay, as you can see, not that much whipped cream on the exterior. And just a voracious childlike portion. Use as much or as little as you like. It's all to your taste. It's all to your creativity. Again, traditional, it's just vanilla whipped cream on the exterior for a Black Forest cherry cake. I change it to almond, and I'm going to throw in some smokehouse salted and honey roasted almonds and natural. I mix it up just for texture in the design. Okay, so after you covered the cake with your whipped topping, whether it's vanilla or almond, or you might just continue with the cherry. I think there's enough cherry flavor in the macerated juices that are soaked into the chocolate layers and also in the cherry filling itself. And so I prefer a little bit of contrast on the exterior, either vanilla whipped cream or which is traditional, or in my case I've used almond whipped cream and some almond extract with a little bit of powdered sugar to sweeten the heavy whipped cream topping. Now I've melted some semi-sweet. You can actually etch with it or drizzle it. It's all to your desires. You just want to basically decorate some branches and leaves and so on and so forth. Again, it's all to your desire. So you don't have to follow anyone else's design at all in this. It's just a matter of drizzling the chocolate, creating branches, leaves, whatever your artistic license is in this regard. And so if you put it on too hot, it'll melt into the icing. So you kind of want to give it a little bit more time than I have here. But again, you're just creating branches and textures and designs into your white negative space. So you can use dark chocolate or semi-sweet. Again, it's all just to your liking. It's all just to whatever you desire that you want to do in your particular cake. So I'll take the chocolate and I'll make branches and I'll make, some leaves. But in the freezer, I've got more melting. I mean, not melting, but solidifying of sculpted leaves and branches and things like that already. And I typically use those to enhance the size since it's a little bit more difficult. And again, it's all just what you want to do. It's your creation. But I like creating all kinds of branches, just like trees and leaves and so on and so forth over it. And you don't need a lot. Again, it's just negative space and it's just artistic license. It's just whatever you decide you want to do with your design. So you really don't need a lot, especially when you, like I do, you add actual, solidified structures into the cake surface. All right, so you get the idea. I'm going to be doing this, creating branches and whatnot at this stage in the negative space. Okay, as you go and you're creating branches and whatnot, just over the exterior first before you add the leaves and the cherries and so on and so forth, whether you're drizzling or etching. Often, if you're in a super hot apartment like I am today, you'll need to just pause and just chill it for a little bit, and then go back to it. You don't want the, how do you say, the cream to be melting so much as you're applying the hot chocolate, which will set up when it's chilled. Okay, so earlier I melted a tray of chocolate and then cut it into branches and leaves. You can use leaf molds or you can use real leaves. When you use real leaves and dip them in melted chocolate, that's my preference because you get a lot of detail work that way. You get the veins in the leaves and everything. It looks really great when you peel the leaf off the chocolate and then put your solidified chocolate piece into your design. But since I, didn't venture outside, I just cut myself some leaf shapes and then I'm just going to go ahead and use these to decorate the cake. Again, you can put them anywhere. You can put them on the side, like so, or you can put them, on the top, wherever you want. It's your creation. And what's nice about when you solidify pieces like this, you're not going to melt the whipped topping as you place the various leaves in various locations on the design. And also, it's nice to be able to take some of the chocolate branches and whatnot and just, you can shape them a little bit and then just stick them right into the side of your cake like so, and add leaves wherever you want. It's your creation, so you can do whatever you feel like. And you don't have to use everything that you've made in your decoration. You don't want to take away all of the negative space. You just want to use as much as looks aesthetically pleasing to your own eye. So wherever you want the leaves and whatever direction you feel like, just apply them. So that's what I'll be doing at this stage. So branches first, and then embed your solid pieces of chocolate next. So after you put your chocolate branches and leaves in places, again, you've got macerated cherry cream filling. Um, um, it's typically just vanilla whipped cream on the outside with dark chocolate drizzles and chocolate leaves, and some of your cherries, some of your macerated cherries. I add various kinds of almonds. I put little almond clusters into the mix. Some smokehouse, some honey roasted, some plain, just little almond clusters. It, in my opinion, since it's a Black Forest cherry cake or Schwarzwälder Kirschtorte, Schwarzwälder Kirschtorte, I think should have some type of essence of forest or wood, and the almond seed, in my opinion, really does that. Adds a little bit of texture to your dessert and a nice complemented flavor to the various sweet. Well, think about it: cherries and almonds and chocolate. It's classic. So it's a classic flavor combination, and I think it goes really well personally. And again, I'll put them wherever, just little clusters here and there, just to add to the design and to, again, to the overall texture. A little bit of crunch in your cake. And it's not a lot, but enough. Enough that, people get a couple almonds or so in every slice. And it doesn't have to be much. I'm not after symmetry. I'm just after some type of aesthetic, artistic design. And with a rotating turntable, you can easily decorate your cake if you can get one. So it's just chocolate branches, chocolate leaves. It's just, creating some type of forest type effect, right? Schwarzwälder Kirschtorte, Black Forest cherry cake. And then, last but not least, you take some of the macerated cherries and add to the mix of the design. And again, there's so much cherries in the filling, you don't need a lot in the upper decoration of your cake. Just enough to accent and give yourself some creativity. All right. And so, cheers to your health. About the only thing. About the only thing that makes a dessert this tasty any better is being able to share it with loved ones. It is, I assure you, quite scrumptious. Won't you join me?